In our other videos, you may have seen the buckets that we have throughout our garden. Those buckets are worm bins. We're going to show you how to cheaply and easily build and maintain them, and why you might want to do so. Our worm buckets are nothing more than buckets with holes drilled in them and the bottom drilled out. The initial cost of worm buckets is the cost of the bucket. Couple notes about equipment, super easy. I use a stepped drill bit. You can use whatever drill bit you have available. Up to about 1/2 inch or so is probably fine. I like the stepped bits because they cut a very clean hole and they don't leave any burrs that I have to go and scrape back off. So you're going to need a drill with a bit and something to cut off the bottom. So I am going to start with a jigsaw. You could use a Dremel, you could use a regular saw, whatever you need to cut through plastic. It's not very heavy duty plastic. It shouldn't take a ton of effort. This is just what I happen to have handy. So for the buckets, we generally want to drill holes every few inches all the way up and down and around the bucket. So if you have a bucket with a rim, you want to be below the rim, generally about 2 inches down from the top. And there we go, one holy bucket and lots of plastic shreds. I probably didn't need that last row around the bottom, but there is one thing you are going to need. But if you're using a saw that goes into the bucket to cut, you need to start a hole right at the bottom rim. So that you can get your blade in that hole to start the cut. And depending on your saw, if that's jagged, you just want to take a file or a razor or something and clean up those jagged edges, which I'll do after I've cut all the rest of them. Also, depending on your bit, you may have little plastic pieces attached in every hole. Go ahead and pull out as many of those as you can. So if you do find any jagged edges on the holes, you probably just want to file them down or use a knife to cut them down just to make it smoother. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of these buckets, and then we'll show you how we install them. Installing the buckets is usually as easy as digging a hole and putting the buckets in. You don't need to be real accurate, just dig a hole that's about the size of the bucket you're using. Because we cut the bottoms out, if a hole isn't quite deep enough, you can just shove the buckets a little deeper into the bottom of the hole if you need to. We've found that 2-gallon buckets are a great size if you have a square foot garden, as they fit within the single square foot. Let us know in the comments if you'd like us to make a video about square foot gardening sometime. Our low beds don't have a grid for square foot gardening, so we're able to use 5-gallon buckets there. We prefer the 5-gallon buckets due to the amount of material we can get in them. Once the buckets are installed, you'll have the earth exposed on the bottom, and you can just add the layered materials needed for the worms. So this is one here. You can see, basically just is a bucket with a bunch of holes in it and dirt at the bottom. We're going to add some compostable material to it, some more dirt and soil, and then some worms. And we'll show you that in just a minute. So this is our Worm Cafe worm bin. We have been doing worms for a little while, so we can take a handful of these and use them to kind of seed the ones that we're going to make. So that's what Daisy is doing now. She's getting a few of our little babies to throw in there.
Not a lot, and there are a lot of little babies in there.
Yep.
We're very happy. Put them back.
So this is what it looks like after we dug it, and we're adding in some zoo compost, which we can include a link to up here somewhere. And then we're adding in some of our kitchen scraps. And then our little worm friends.
There you go.
And
Look at that.
we have the advantage that we already have these from our existing worm supply. If you don't have worms, that's okay. You'll get worms show up eventually by themselves, but it might not hurt to, if you are planning on doing a lot of these, to go ahead and order some compost worms. And compost worms are not night crawlers. They're not the ones that you normally find in your garden when you're digging soil. So be aware there is a difference. The compost worms stay at the top and eat food near the top, whereas the worms that you're used to finding in your garden tend to go much deeper, and they're not as effective at cleaning out stuff. And then we add some paper, more compost, and water it in. And that is it. And now as we get food scraps, we will just add them to these, and we'll kind of rotate through all of the buckets as we do that.
It's been 1 week since we added food in the worm bin, and we added some worms. So let's do a checkup to see how they're doing. And in the interim, I've added extra food in here. So let's take a look. Oh, there's our worms. They're right there. You see that? Oh, right there. There's over here, there's here. So they're doing fine. So I'm gonna layer down my food some more. So I've added just layer between the carbon, the nitrogen, and I know that they like cardboards and they like dark, being in the dark, so I just added this piece of cardboard on top. And Jonathan was concerned about them not getting enough water and air, so he added holes through the lid, and he wanted, as additional security, he wanted to add a brick on top of the lid. But we've experimented. We're doing one lid with the holes and one lid without. So let's check the other bucket that has worms, and we've just changed it to a solid lid. So we've just changed the lid to a solid lid just to see whether it has any impact or made any difference. So the same's over here. I added the cardboard cover and I added additional sprouting. Let's check on our little babies. Oh, there's plenty of them. They don't like the light, so there they are. So there's more of them. Do you see them? There's one right there. So they're doing fine. See there, whoop, they don't like the light. But yeah, they seem to be, there's another one right there. So they seem to be fine. They seem to like their new home. That makes us happy. That makes me happy. So let's go check the other one that we just added food, but we didn't add any worms. So I don't suspect that there'll be any worms at this time, but since it's only been a week, so let's go check it. I don't expect any worms to have discovered this bin yet. And oh, look, there's a worm here. There's a little tiny worm here.
Are you sure it's not a centipede?
Let me see. It's a worm. Look at that. Incredible. But anyway, I don't know whether that's a one-off or whether, let's see if I can find something else. No, I don't see any. I don't see anything else. But I didn't expect any to have found it yet. But I have been feeding them and adding bedding and food. So let's see how they're doing. Oh, I see worm activity. Do you see worms, sweetie?
Yeah, stop moving quickly.
There's worms. There we go.
Oh, there are definitely worms in there.
Yeah, I don't want to disturb them too much, but take a look. Look at that. They're very happy. See that over there? Yep. You see little ones, big ones, and they seem to be very happy.
Okay.
So here we go. We put the bedding back. It's been a month and a half since we put the worm bins in, so let's go check, see how they're doing. I like to cover them just to offer them some additional darkness. And I try to feed them. Ooh, look at that. I tried to feed them weekly. And look at that. I haven't even dug in. So let's dig a little deeper. Ooh, lots of little babies too. So they're quite happy. So every time I feed them a mixture of greens and browns, and I water them also. Oh, and how do we feel about these worm bins? Well, we like it so much that we added 8 more worm bins in our low beds. Our beds are 16 feet long, so for each one we put in 2 buckets. And instead of a 2-gallon, we actually use the 5-gallon buckets. So this is our 5-gallon bucket. We pretty much did the same thing. We cut the bottom off and we drill holes. But for these 5-gallon buckets, we didn't drill any holes on the lids. It seems like it doesn't make any difference. We started these 2 weeks after we started the ones in the big beds. And I did put a handful of worms in each of the buckets. Let's see how they're doing about a month later. So how do we feel about our worm buckets? We love it. It's been great to take advantage of all our food scraps and see that the worms actually enjoy it, and in the process create great nutritious soil for us to use. We hope you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.